when we, a democratic party, ignores key principles of democracy, which is free and fair contest.
She will take up this issue and address it immediately so that we don't lose this seat. We have less than 24 months to go for the general election, and the earlier, the better. Thank you.
Good morning, hello, welcome to yet another exciting edition of Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. As you know, this is where we put Ghana first in all of our conversation. I'm glad to come your way again today, Monday, the 5th of June 2023. And today, aftershocks of NDC parliamentary and presidential primaries leaves the party reeling under as some constituencies, particularly the Nanumba South constituency and the Ketu North constituency delegates, demand a rerun of the elections there. Today on the show, we get into their concerns and get expert opinion from a political analyst as to what the largest opposition party should be doing to resolve all these indifferences in areas regarded as its stronghold. And much later, the government has been appealing to pensioner bondholders to forfeit interest payment on their matured coupons and principals. The government, meanwhile, has offered new agreements to labor groups as it continues to push to have pension funds become a part of its domestic debt exchange program. Stay with us here on Let's Talk Ghana. When we return, we get into the conversation. Right, you're welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. This show airs every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays here on Studios 2 TV, on YouTube, as well as on Facebook. It is always a delight to get feedback from you as to the content that we bring to you. So share wide and leave a message for us on the conversations that we continue to bring to you. I am Eric Mawina Egbert, and we'll get into the very first conversation for today. And we're starting on the note of politics, because all appears not to be well in the Ketu North constituency of the NDC, as well as the Nanumba South constituency of the NDC. Why do I say this? Delegates in both constituencies are still carrying aftershocks, if I can call it that, from the May 13 primaries in the two constituency. Let's start off from Ketu North. And as you know it, we were there in the Ketu North constituency when we toured some part of the voter region during that May 13 primaries, and we brought you details here on Studios 2 Television. Now, in the Ketu North constituency where we ended our tour, there was misunderstanding, because after the voting, Edem Agbana, who's a former youth organizer of the NDC, he polled 360 votes, with John Adanu, a banker and a businessman, polling some 359 votes. Now, after more than 2 recounts, the EC discovered and stamped ballot papers, and so the decision was that both candidates, the 2 leading candidates, had 358 votes, and so there was to be a rerun. But the executives of the NDC sat on the matter and decided that, based on a true interpretation of the will of the delegates, Edem Agbana should be allowed to proceed and be the face of the NDC in the Ketu North. John Adanu has subsequently organized a press conference expressing misgivings about that decision. Well, it appears he's not the only one, because last week, delegates in the Ketu North constituency went on a protest demanding a rerun of the elections. One of them spoke to the media, or spoke to journalists, and let's listen to exactly the concerns from these set of delegates in the Ketu North constituency.
Did we accept and stamp ballots in our other constituencies, or unstamp ballots are valid only in Ketu North? What at all will someone lose if rerun is conducted? We feel like the party at the national level is imposing a candidate on us instead of allowing the democratic process to take place, or to take its course, and giving us the opportunity to elect our parliamentary candidates and not to select for us. We, the concerned delegates and loyalists of the party, are stakeholders. We demand that the national committee, the national executive committee, looks at their decision again. Let the rerun be done for the delegates to choose the parliamentary candidate. The Electoral Commission of Ghana declared a tie of votes 358 between comrades John Adanu Zau and Adam Agbana, and ordered that there should be a rerun of the election to get the winner. It is important to note that there was only one declaration of the Ketu North result by the Electoral Commission. No one was declared a winner and later changed for a tie. However, the National Executive Committee of the party pronounced counter declaration on the 16th day of May 2023 that Comrade Adam Agbana is duly elected parliamentary candidate for Ketu North at the party headquarters, Accra. This unprecedented declaration has created enormous political tension within the rank and file of the delegates and party faithful. There is an e-scam in Ketu North NDC, and this will blow back in our faces. Are our leaders oblivious of the consequences of such retrogressive acts raising its ugly face in the Ketu North constituency? How can we, a democratic party, ignore key principles of democracy, which is free and fair contest?
And so Enoch Amedegbe is a delegate, and he led a number of them in the Ketu North constituency. That's not the only place, because in Wolensi, in the Nanumba South constituency as well, some delegates there and supporters of the NDC, a pro-NDC group, not delegates, pro-NDC group, are raising concerns that the May 13 primaries was rigged for the incumbent member of parliament. And so they as well, over the weekend, staged a protest demanding a rerun of the elections. I'll just take you to the Nanumba South constituency as well, and then we'll listen to a number of them. One of the spokespersons for this pro-NDC group make their allegations, and then we'll return and get some analysis for you as to what the party can begin to do to hold on to some of these seats as it continues to prepare, battle ready for elections 2024. Just stay with us. Let's go to the Nanumba South constituency and return shortly.
The use of an approved register. 2. Overvoting. 3. Proxy voting or ghost voting. 4. The manner in which sorting and counting were done. It is against this background that we, the Progressive NDC Youth Wing, wish to express our dissatisfaction by holding this press conference in relation to the issues raised. We thus urge the party leadership in the constituency, at the regional and at national levels, to take immediate actions in order to prevent the party from losing the seat to MPP come 2024. The grassroots are seriously mobilizing themselves to demand justice from the party's rank and file. It is very clear and obvious that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama would win the 2024 presidential elections, inshallah. Unfortunately, the much needed development in the constituency will only be an illusion if the issues identified are not duly addressed. It is very probable that skirt and blouse will occur in the coming 2024 election.
Robert Tifuo. I'm speaking about the general issues in the constituency. Looking at the vote differences between the MPP candidate and the NDC candidate who won, I think it's just 1,000 votes. And if this hula baloo is not addressed, we can't afford to lose the seat to MPP again. The history of Ulenzi constituency is that no MP retain the seat more than 8 years, and we the youth in the NDC cannot afford to lose this seat when it is obvious that John Mahama is coming to power 2024, so that the constituents will also get the needed development that we need, especially overseas of our constituency. They don't have roads, they don't have water, they don't have electricity, and when we lose these elections, it means they are going to be denied development forever and ever. So we can't afford. The will of the people must stay. The one the constituents like is the one should be on the ticket come 2024 general elections. I thank you for coming, and I will take up this issue and address it immediately so that we don't lose this seat. We have less than 24 months to go for the general election, and the earlier the better. Thank you very much.
And so a pro-NDC group, according to the group, they are NDC supporters and they want a rerun of the elections. Jonathan Asante-Ottray, he's a political analyst with the University of Cape Coast. He's joining us on the telephone lines now for a conversation as to what the NDC can do. Right, so, well, like I've been mentioning, we're trying to reach Jonathan Asante-Ottray, who's a political analyst with the University of Cape Coast. Unfortunately, our calls to him, we've not been able to reach out to him. So we'll go for a break. When we return, we'll do some other matters. Matters on the economy. Stay with us. This is Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. Right, you're welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. This show, like I mentioned, every time airs every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays here on Studios 2 TV, on YouTube, as well as on Facebook. Right, so I mentioned that we'll speak to political analyst Jonathan Asante-Ottray. Let's get some thoughts from a deputy let's get thoughts rather from Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustapha Agbande, who's joined us on the telephone line. Mr. Agbande, many thanks for speaking to us. And so it appears that in two constituencies, the Nanumba South and then Ketu North, delegates are demanding a rerun of the elections. How is the party addressing these issues?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I think basically we've been talking about this matter. A decision was taken. The party's decision is very supreme, considering the issues that we have had. The next stage was to reconcile all the parties to bring them to the same table. However, because of the exigencies of the by-elections that we are bedeviled with, we have not been able to do that. And so we will just encourage our party members to exercise restraint and give credence to Asin Central. The national chairman is not in the jurisdiction. He will come straight into Asin North.
Right.
The general secretary who leads this election and process is busy with Asin North. And so after we're done with the by-election, we will sit down and look at the grievances post-elections and deal with it. The focus of the party is to bring each and everyone under the umbrella of unison. We require maximum support from each and every party member whilst we go into 2024 election. And so it is not the objective of leadership to, as it were, sideline, subside anyone. They are all important as the other factions who have won the election. And so we need time to be able to set up teams to listen to their grievances and to deal with the same. The issue of Ulenzi is so peculiar because I've had the opportunity to meet the gentleman and his team last week. And I had communicated to him that the petition that he brought the party will look at it, and then it should give us a week because we are preparing for a not. But he defied that advice, and at the back of it, a demonstration was called, and whatever is happening. But to the largest extent, I have always intimated that the party will not hesitate to discipline who it has to discipline for processes to be free. If you have grievances as a party member, as a contestant of the party, or the ticket of the party, you must as well adhere to the principles and systems of the party in addressing grievances. He brought a petition, and his case was that he believed that the election was flawed. He believed that he lost by 18 or I think 13 votes. And that I asked him specifically what were his concerns and reliefs. And he said he wanted a rerun. I told him point blank that an election where you have participated, film you are pulling agents, participated in the election process, stood there and they have declared a winner. I doubt if that was a consideration and that the party was willing to have a reconciliation so that we can consider his grievances going forward. And so all these things are happening at the back of what conversations that we have had. The question that one will ask is, if he had won the election in the process he's accusing, would he have called for a rerun of same? And that I want to remind party members that we have a crucial elections. Currently, as we stand, the focus of the party is on not. That is the party's agenda nationwide. The leader of the party, the national chairman of the party, the general secretary of the party are all involved. And that anyone whose conduct amount to distracting us from this focus will be acting in what we call anti-party conduct. And that let party members heed to advise, stay calm whilst we finish with our not, come back to deal with the grievances. I do not think that we are dealing with our not, and we have party members who claim they are loyal members in the media and saying all manner of things because they have grievances. Yes, grievances are very legitimate, and the party will address them. But we are saying that at the moment, our focus is on winning the by-election, nothing more, nothing else. And so we are pleading with them to exercise restraint. Ketu, I've been speaking to the regional chairman since yesterday. I spoke to the Council of Elders in the Volta region. I spoke to a series of individuals and asked them to speak to the constituency executives who are generally behind these things to calm down so that we'll find a nice way of dealing with their grievances and moving forward as a party. We need the party united. And none of them will the party want to lose going into 2024 election. So they should be calm, give us a space to finish with not, which is a more important assignment for the party countrywide. And after we are done with that, we'll deal with all of these issues.
Just a final one from me. Does it worry the executives, these teething issues? Because you would have, like you're saying, you're trying to execute a by-election in Asin North, and yet despite meeting all of the relevant parties, they still, in your words, defy the orders of the party and are coming out into the media, creating a situation as though the party has failed to whip people in line and there's no unity in areas that are expected to be strongholds.
Well, they must know that when your conduct goes beyond the right that the party allows you, that will amount to what comes under Article 41 of the Constitution. And all I'm saying is that every grievance post-election is as important as the election itself. And that the focus of the party, the focus of the leader of the party, the national leadership of the party, is to reconcile post-election grievances so that we can have a united front. And that when your conduct, actions of yourself and your supporters amount to what stands the way of the party will have to move on. And at all material points in time, the party will move on. That, let me repeat, that the NDC will move on. But what is more important in this discussion is that we are more focused in Asim North, which is also a concern to the individuals who are complaining.
Right.
After we are done with Asim North, we will then sit down and then listen to everyone and their grievances and resolve them. I don't think that there are challenges that we cannot resolve.
Right.
But what we don't want to entertain is the conduct of making the media a room for addressing their grievances. They still would require the party to make some interventions into the issues they are raising because they are not on their own. And so they should listen to the party officers and then act in a manner that will support the party in every activity that we take.
Mr. Bandi, I appreciate that you could speak to us.
I'm grateful.
That's Mustafa Bandi. He is a Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, providing some clarity to these concerns that have come from two separate supporters in the Ketu North constituency, that's for one, and then the Nanumba South constituency, where some supporters in Willensi staged a protest. So away from the politics, let's talk finance now, because on Friday, Deputy Finance Minister Abena Osei met pensioner bondholders. They've been picketing, they resumed picketing again last week over what they say is government failure to honor all obligations to them. And amongst many things, the government has given new assurances that they will honor all of the obligations due them. But interestingly, the government is appealing to them to forfeit interest, because they've been calling for interest on their matured coupons, because looking at the number of days it has stayed with government, over 100 days, that's more than the days required for the 91-day treasury bill. And so they are demanding interest on it as well. The government says that, please, forfeit the calls for an interest payment on these matured coupons and bonds, because things are quite dire and we do not have all of the money that we need. That's one. With regards the pensioner bondholders and their meeting. And so there's a meeting scheduled for this Thursday, and the government is seeking to meet them and then iron out these differences. Thursday, that's the 8th of June, iron out these differences, particularly on interest payment, while it looks to this week honor all the 5 coupons that have matured and their due dates are passed. You can begin to pay them all of the things that they are due. That's one leg of the conversation. On another leg, the government met labor groups last Thursday with a new offer to have pension funds used for the domestic debt exchange program. Now, in December of last year, the government was forced to exempt pension funds from the domestic debt exchange program, which was a key component in all of the dealings to get an IMF program. Now, the IMF has told government that, look, come back and come and address your debt situation because your debt is unsustainable. And so the government has to come back on the negotiation table now and seek to give labor groups a new offer that will see pension funds included in the debt exchange program. The government has tabled 19.5% with a longer maturity date for these new coupons. Angel Kabunu is the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers. He spoke to TV3 as to the offer that has been brought to them. Let's just listen briefly to what he said, and then we come back on the telephone lines, both issues together, and get expert opinion from Dr. Julius Carter. Let's just listen to Angel Kabunu.
Well, they sound convincing. The presentation they did yesterday is an improvement on what was there previously. But one principle that Labour wants government to get clear is that no one who is due for pension should go on pension without his properly calculated pension benefits. Yes, we indicated that to government, that in all these our up and down discussions and negotiations, under no circumstances should a pensioner be denied his properly calculated pension benefits when he or she is due for pension.
So, for instance, someone is supposed to retire at the end of this year. There should be a proper calculation.
But as I speak, someone is retiring today. Okay? We should not shortchange that person because we are engaged in debt exchange. The person should go home with his properly calculated accrued benefits. If you get a bad deal, your rank and file will react. Yeah, so let people stop those casting those innuendos. The issue is that government has brought a new proposal. We listened to government. The discussion was very healthy and cordial. Our technical committee, as I speak, have begun work, and they will give their response back to government.
What did they tell you that you are going to increase what you are doing?
Okay, so for example, the duration has been reduced to 4 and 5 years. That is the duration of payment. So we are talking about an increase from 18.5% to 19.5%. So these are improved indicators on the new proposal that government brought yesterday.
So Dr. Julius Carter, he is a fellow with the Chartered Economists Ghana, and he holds a PhD in economics from the United States of America, and MSc in economics as well. He's joined us on the telephone lines for some reaction to this. Many thanks, Doc, for speaking to us. And so two-pronged challenges, if we can call them that. The government asking the pensioner bondholders to forfeit interest, and at the same time presenting a deal to labor groups. In your expert opinion, should the pensioners be agreeing to forfeiting their interest on these matured coupons and bonds?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity for listeners to listen to my opinion on the pension and the bond deal of labor unions and bondholders. I will say from my perspective that in the right wisdom, do you say that someone who has invested his money or has gone on pension should not receive the interest at the end of the period that he has invested the money? That's the main question.
Right.
I mean, emotionally, the person will not feel very comfortable. As an individual, everybody has an idea or an economic idea of how he's going to make those returns on the principal to be used for maybe some projections that the person has made. So if the person is going to defer it, you must know that the CD is devaluing against the dollar, and prices of goods and services are increasing day in, day out. So at the time that the person will be receiving that interest, will commodities, take for example, a bag of cement be the same? Today, a drop of medicine for eye is costing 35 or 40 Ghana cedis. And if the person is a pensioner already, there's a downturn of life expectancy ratios where we say that when the person is growing, there are more complications that the person will be experiencing. So do you say that that person will not be able to use some of these interests to be buying medicine and cater for himself? So there's a whole lot of considerations that are going to be put in place. And how sure are we that if this pension and bonds are invested in government going to get an IMF loan, will properly be paid at the end of the period? That is another big question we're going to look at. Then you see that at the end of the day, government has already failed certain projects and plans that if the government has decided to invest in already. So the question is that, how promising will that fulfillment be to the development of the people who are holding the bonds?
Right.
So there is a whole lot of, a table of questions that the government has to sit up and answer before even using the pensioners' investments,
Right.
and the bondholders' investment.
Right. There's a school of thought that with the government having agreed a deal with the IMF already, now there's
Yeah.
a deadline that they have to meet to restructure the debt. And so, particularly for the labor groups whose pension funds the government is now proposing that they bring along into the domestic debt exchange program, these labor groups must now use that as a card to demand certain things of the government. For instance, a cut down on government size and other things. Do you share in some of these arguments?
Well, I agree with them principally on cutting down government expenditure. It's a clear signal for government to really sit down and look at. The size of government is ballooning every day. They are adding, they are not subtracting anything. Then number two, you look at the way the expenditures of government, the way even they buy stationary computers and machines, and the way they increase the prices. It's also a cost. The procurement processes are very bad. Single source sourcing of procurement and all that. Those are the problems we are facing. And then furniture's consumption. Why do we import all these things when we have local manufacturers who could do beautiful jobs?
Right.
So that we pay in our local currency and cut down on importation so that we can have some return. I'm telling you, the Federal Reserve, the money that we have as a reserve in the consolidated fund, has been depleted already. So the government is not having the strength. Well, if the bondholders and the pensioners are saying that they cannot be able to help the government, then we are going to lose that fund we need to invest in the economy. But my concern is that will this government listen to the people's plight and be able to control their consumption levels? I don't believe so. They can't do it because there are promises upon promises that when we engage you, you're going to be in government, do A, B, C, D. So the promises that you have, if you give too much promises, take it for instance, if I promise you that I'm going to do this, buy you car, things that I can't do and I promise you, it will over me. So when I'm even doing it, you will not be fulfilled.
Right.
So we have to change those attitudes and discipline ourselves. Otherwise, these troubles will be reoccurring in our life, and as a country will go down. People will work and they will not be paid.
Right.
People are suffering. Look at even now. Nobody can spend less than 25 Ghana cedis on even just banku and soup. You may call it a katia soup or a banquet soup or whatever. So it's really pain. People are not happy. So government have to sit up. We are not joking here. This is a serious thing. Well, Labour has told them they will go and talk to the unions, see how they're going to convince them and all that. I happen to be an economic advisor to some of these unions.
Right.
So I can understand the way they feel and the way they think, because psychologically it is not fair for somebody to invest money within 3 months, will not see the interest. Government will say forfeit it for 5 years. It's not an easy thing, and we cannot be playing and toiling with the citizenry. That one must stop. And if the finance minister cannot find alternative to cut down on government's expenditure, cut down the size of government, cut down on importation of sugar, milk and other things, and then we produce and eat what we have, then we are going to be suffering like this. We have to stop those things.
Right. I guess that, the advice continues to go to government from different aspects, and yourself inclusive. We'll look forward to if Labour can indeed make those demands and force it down the throat of government. But I appreciate that you could speak to us, Doc.
thank you very much, my listeners and yourself, and I'm very grateful to you to give me this opportunity to talk on air. Thank you.
Right, sir. That's Dr. Julius Carter speaking to us this morning here on Let's Talk Ghana, and that's how we'll wrap up today's edition of the show here, Monday, the 5th of June, 2023. We return on Wednesday with a lot more for you here on Let's Talk Ghana on Studios 2 Television. I am Eric Mawina Egbeta. Pleasure that you could be a part of today's edition.
Studios 2 TV. The truth is here in your eyes.